And I'd like to introduce our closing keynote speaker for today. We have Dr. Mona Newsome Wicks, who received her PhD from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center. She received an AS and a bachelor's degree from the University of Memphis in 1998 and 1981, and her MSN from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center. Dr. Wicks was the very first African American to graduate from Wayne State University. She has been on the faculty at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center for 26 years. Her research interests include minority, family caregiver, and women's health within the context of chronic illness, health promotion, risk reduction, and health disparities. She currently advises doctoral students and has formerly served as College of Nursing Associate Dean for Research, and she's the founding director of the college's Office of Research and Grant Support. Dr. Wicks is a lifetime member of the Greater Memphis Area chapter of the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, and is a member of Beta Theta chapter at large, Sigma Theta Tau International, with the Tennessee and American Nurses Association. She also belongs to the Southern Nursing Research Society and is a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing. She previously served as a member of the Health Disparities and Equity Promotion Review Group for the Center for Scientific Review at the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Wicks is also a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Executive Nurse Fellow between 2008 and 2011, and was selected as Outstanding Alumni by the University of Tennessee Health Science Center College of Nursing in 2009. She has received institutional, regional, and national awards for her teaching and mentoring skills. She is a co-author on some 50 peer-reviewed published manuscripts and abstracts. I've looked at her CV, and it's impressive. Her personal interests include walking, reading, gardening, and mentoring minority high school and college students interested in health careers. She is married to Sammy Wicks, who I've heard her refer to a number of times this weekend, and has one son, Sammy James, called Jamie, and he's Sammy James Wicks II. I'd like to introduce you and present to you Dr. Mona Newsome Wicks.
Thank you, you all. You all just don't realize how truly privileged I feel to be ending this phenomenal session that we had this weekend in terms of, the formal sessions we're having today. And when the question was asked about what word would you write on the tree, the word that came to my mind was possibility. I see such possibilities in the people in this room. And it makes me feel very proud to be a nurse. It makes me feel very comforted to know that in 10 years, when I hope to retire, that I have left nursing in excellent hands. So I want to thank you for having me. And I want to share with you some of my thoughts about this presentation, which is called Preparing to Lead in a Diverse Society, Moving Beyond Intention. I think for a very long time in nursing, we have had the intention of being a diverse profession. And in some respects, we've been somewhat successful, and others we can be perhaps a bit more successful. So I want to talk to you today about some things that I have learned along my journey. I've been a nurse now for 35 years, and as Dr. Diane mentioned, I have been a faculty member for 26 years. That's been a lot. And I want to share with you what my dreams are for nursing. And I'm really, it's as if this thing was put together by someone greater than us, because when Maria did a presentation today, so much of what she said gels with what I plan to say. She used the scripture at the end of her presentation that's on the back of my door at work. And then she ended with a poem, and I ended with a poem. And we did not speak to each other before we came here. So this has come together for a reason. And I believe in divine intervention, and so I'm going to accept it as such, and we're going to move forward and have a real good discussion, I'm hoping. I mentioned that I have about 10 years left. And, you know, at this point, I think all of it you need to start thinking about, even though many of you are much younger than I am, about what your legacy is going to be when you leave nursing. And I've done a lot of things. I've been very fortunate to do a lot of things. But the one thing that I feel that I have left to do is to help with this transformation that I see that we're on the cusp of. And that's transforming the healthcare system for a diverse population here in this country, and then preparing nurses so that we're ready in terms of our knowledge base and skill sets and attitudes, and also in terms of our complexion, because I'd like to see our complexion change a little bit more. And what I'm going to challenge you with today is to think about, you know, Maria told her story. What is the story you want to leave behind in terms of your contributions to nursing? And you're in a perfect position. Now, I'm able to influence because of many things that I've experienced. You, each one of you, is able to influence. You have such power. And sometimes we don't realize how much power we have. You have such influence. And I'm going to challenge you today that before you leave nursing, that you're going to be part of the story that talks about how nurses helped transform the healthcare system, that took care of a diverse population, and that enhanced its own diversity for the good of the people that we serve. Because that's what nursing is all about, isn't it? We're advocates and we're leaders. And an advocate is a leader. You may not think of yourself as a leader, but you are. Wherever you are. Because leadership is not a title. Leadership is a role. And to role, you have to choose something. And whether you choose to do it or not, it's going to come after you, and you need to be ready for it. Okay? All right. Excellent. Okay. So it's always good to come from the same frame of reference. So what I'd like for us to do is start by acknowledging that we need to understand what I mean when I talk about the notion of diversity. And this is a definition from Patrick and Kumar's 2012 study that examined barriers to workplace diversity, which we talked about in our discussion session just a few minutes ago, didn't we? See how this thing is coming together? And we are focusing on diversity as acceptance and respect and moving beyond tolerance. Everybody say it. Acceptance, respect, and moving beyond tolerance. That's what we need to do. Because we have to take care of people. I heard lots of stories. You all don't know this, but I'm shy by nature. Do you believe that? I'm very shy, very reserved. But if I like you, I'll talk your ears off. And I like you all. So you're in trouble. And so what I heard, I like to sit and listen and reflect. And what I heard was such great stories, such great ambitions, such great aspirations about how you want to make a difference in your practice and in your lives. And so I'm going to share with you some strategies I think will be helpful to you. Now, you'll have to decide what's going to work for you in all of this that I'm going to present, because what works for me might not work for you, but this is a beginning. This is a beginning. I'm asking you to think about everything I say and to place yourself in the context of these things that I described and see how it fits with who you are and how it fits with who you want to become. Okay? I'm challenging you. And I'm challenging you not because I don't believe you'll do it. I'm challenging you because I know you will. Okay? I have great confidence in you. And the other thing that I want to say is this. Acceptance does not require agreement. It requires respect. We don't have to like the healthcare decisions that our patients make when we don't understand their belief systems. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to agree with it, rather. But we do have to honor it and respect it. Because ultimately, you make your own healthcare decisions, don't you? And shouldn't they? And sometimes they don't do what we want them to do. That's their right and their choice and not ours. we had this definition of leadership, and Maria gave us a definition of leadership. There are thousands of definitions of leadership out there, thousands of definitions of leadership. And if you look at the traits of the effective leader, there are thousands of different traits. And so what I would say to you is this, that leadership is a process of influencing others, to understand and agree about what needs to happen and how to do it. And that's your role. I'm reading a very interesting book that I've mentioned to several people, and it's written by a woman by the name of Betsy Myers. And one of the gifts of the Robert Wood Johnson program is this. They are always sending us these great leadership books for free. Wow. I mean, these are like top-selling leadership books, and they send them to us. And I make time to read them because I want to be an effective leader. And I know that to be an effective leader requires continuous growth. It's not something you go, it's kind of like cultural competence. You know, cultural competence is not something you never really achieve. It's something you're always working towards. Well, to me, leadership is something you're always working towards, striving towards to be better, to be effective, because the context that you're doing your leadership work in is constantly changing, isn't it? The people you work with change, the populations you serve change, and because things are constantly changing, you need to grow and change as well. That's like what nursing is, isn't it? Nursing is about continual growth. Even if we're tired of reading sometimes, even if we've been burnt out by reading, something will come across our desk, something will come across the internet that will pique our attention. We need to grasp it, take it, and use it to the betterment of our patients. So this book that Betsy Myers has written says that leadership is a quality that we nurture in ourselves, regardless of our job title or function in life. It is a function not of title, but not of academic degree or access to power, but how we treat and connect with others around us. So leadership is about connections and relationships. And I mentioned to Dean Stone that I think she has this phenomenal organization here because she has surrounded herself with phenomenal people. And when you think about all the great organizations that people talk about where they work, or you hear about great organizations, the best places to work in America, it's because of relationships and engagement of the people who work there, and that they feel respected and they have a voice. So I'm challenging you to wherever you choose to lead, whether it's in your church, in your synagogue, in your community, in your professional nursing organization, in your workplace, in your family, wherever you choose to lead, remember these things. Use these things. Build strong relationships. Okay? Can you tell I like this stuff? I'm really passionate about it. This is me. I'm giving you authentic Mona. Mm-hmm. And I'm giving it to you because you have inspired me. Mm-hmm. Listening to your stories and seeing you sit and reflect, hear you having honest, difficult conversations with each other, I'm inspired by you. Do you hear me? Mm-hmm. I have great hopes for you, and I know that you won't let us down. I believe that we're in a unique position as nurses to influence transformations that are before us. And there's lots of big transformations in front of us in healthcare. We can view diversity and cultural competence and inclusion as a challenge. We can view it as an opportunity, or we can see it as fate. It doesn't matter, it's here. We've got to deal with it, okay? Each one of us has to do our own small part to move this agenda forward because we love nursing, because we honor people, and because we're an important part of this great nation. So, now most good academics write objectives. I was bad. I didn't write any objectives. What I did was I said we were going to be led by some questions, and I want you to think about these questions as we have this discussion, okay? So the questions I want us to talk about is, I want to talk about why diversity matters, and we all know why diversity matters, but I'm going to show you a picture that tells you it's here. We got to deal with it. And then I want to talk about attitudes and knowledge and leadership skills that you need to participate in this whole process. I call this diversity preparedness. You know how you have preparedness for disasters? Well, I don't see this as a disaster, but this is what we need to do. We need to get prepared. It's a process, and we need to get started with it. And then I want to challenge you to consider creating a professional development plan for your personal development with specific strategies that can help you become more effective as a leader for this transformation that is before you. And so we're going to talk about leadership, about diversifying the workforce, about preparing for diversity initiatives in practice, research, education, policy. It's all important. And you have the potential to lead in all of these spheres of influence. You have the potential. You. Yeah, you do. Okay? So, a picture can tell a big story, can it? What is this picture showing us? This well-constructed graph is telling us that the complexion and the complexity of our nation is rapidly changing. The complexion and the complexity. And what I mean by complexity is because we're becoming much more diverse. And because it's difficult to have those conversations, it becomes more complex. Because many of you have mentioned that this is the first time you've had this honest, authentic, open communication. Do you think that with this picture appearing as it does, that we're ready? Are we ready? Do you think nursing's ready? Nursing's getting there, I think. I think we're ahead of the curve more so than other professions are, but we still got some work to do. And you're part of that work. Okay. And for many people, when they see these data, it's very unsettling. And when people are unsettled, they become fearful. And when people become fearful, sometimes they're not kind to one another. And we're always looking for a way to maintain the status quo. Well, the status quo does not exist anymore. It is changing. And whether we want to be ready for it or not, we have to change. So here's another story that this is telling us. Let me explain it a little bit to you because I left some of the numbers out because it was so busy with some of the numbers. So the orange bars on this graph reflect the distribution of ethnic and racial groups in nursing in the U.S. And these data were compared with a distribution of ethnic and racial groups in the United States population. So it's the U.S. population distribution compared to the nursing distribution. And these data are from 2008. And so we can see that 83% of nurses are classified as white, non-Hispanic, compared to 63% of the population. 5.4% of RNs are African American, while 12.2% of the U.S. population falls within this ethnic category. Much of the diversity in nursing students is in Hispanics, Latinos, African Americans, Asian, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So what does this story tell us? That the diversity in the nursing profession is not keeping pace with the diversity that occurs in the nation. And think about it, because I think somebody mentioned it earlier, that we haven't even talked about gender. We haven't even discussed that. And there are still men in nursing. And this comment is from an article that was written by Dean Michael Bly, who is the dean at the Goldfarb School of Nursing in St. Louis. He's a man, of course, he's a man. And he says that men still have to explain to their families and friends why they choose to become nurses. Shouldn't we be past that in 2013? Shouldn't we? But we're not. Okay? An interesting fact that you may not be aware of, but I do think somebody alluded to this a little while ago, was that 48% of white nurses complete baccalaureate degrees or higher. 52.5% of African American nurses do. 5.5% of Hispanic nurses do higher education, and 75.6% of Asian nurses do. Now, why is that? There's probably a lot of reasons for that, but I have to tell you my own story. The reason that I did it was because I never thought I knew enough, and I wanted to know more so I could give more care, better care. And I'm going to give you an honest perception of what my experience, unfortunately, has been in much of my nursing career. Is I always had to do more, because everything that I did, when I made a mistake, seemed to be blown out of proportion. And when I did good, it was minimized. And so we need to move past that. We know about this as women, how nurses are minimized and their work is unimportant as compared to the primarily male profession of physicians. So we need to move past these kinds of things. And what we need to see is when we see our own stories of being excluded, try to then, stop what identify. You can never know anyone else's experiences. But try to identify how that person might feel about being excluded. Try to, in your head, think about how you felt when you were the only woman in the room, you were the only nurse in the room, those kinds of things. Put yourself in that position and then try to understand how the patient might feel, or how your coworker might feel, or how your students might feel. We have to try to understand others before we are understood. I think it was Stephen Covey that said that. strive to understand others. Strive to understand others. You do have to know yourself, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about self-awareness. Questions, comments? Are you with me? Okay. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But what I'm saying to you is this, and I'm hopeful that I'm effective in doing this. I want to put it in a package that you can receive and that you can see yourself in. See yourself in the story. Write the story so it becomes the story you want it to be. Okay? All right. So in the prior slide, there was some information that suggests the need to consider strategies to increase diversity in nursing. And so why seek this goal? Why does it matter to have diversity in nursing? Well, I mean, there's been lots of reports, and of course the IOM report was probably the critical report that's been published that says that there's a belief that if you can increase the diversity of healthcare providers, then maybe you can improve access to healthcare. Because the data show that ethnic minority providers tend to take care of ethnic minority populations. So, I mean, that's what the data tells us. Okay. Does this mean that a majority nurse cannot be culturally competent? No, it doesn't. Because you can be a minority nurse and not be culturally competent. I'll give you a case in point. Say you were brought up and you had, you're African American, and you had lots of benefits and wealth and those kinds of things. Sometimes it happens that in the African American community, those of us who have moved ahead forget about those who are still behind. So what I'm saying to you is this: cultural competence is not owned by any one group. It is something we all should strive for. Does that make sense to you? To understand diverse patients requires that we embrace, accept, and honor diverse perspectives. Have you ever cared for a patient at the end of his or her life, and you felt like they need to fight this? They have a few more good years left. Have you ever taken care of somebody at the end of life, and you thought, why are they giving up? Why are they, fight this thing? You could live longer. Well, taking care of diverse patients is somewhat like this. And what I mean by that is this, and it's what I said earlier. That patient has the right to make their own decisions about how they live and how they die. Right? Just in the same way, ethnic minority patients sometimes don't do the right thing. Heck, we're all educated folks. Do we all do 100% the same things, the right things? Does everybody here exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week? Does everybody here have normal body weight? Does everybody here have normal blood pressure? Does everybody here eat 6 fruit and vegetables every day? Do we do that? Are we perfect? So why do we expect that our patients will be perfect and follow all of our recommendations when they shouldn't follow our recommendations? They should follow our collaborative plan, right? Because if the plan is not our plan, then what happens? If they don't do what? They don't adhere. And they don't adhere because it wasn't their plan in the first place. It was whose plan? Our plan, right? We want the best of them. We want them to do all the things that are recommended that they do. But we know that they're not going to do all those things. So you ask them, what changes are you willing to make, and how can I help you make those changes? Give them what else? Voice. Give them voice. And everyone needs voice. Okay? That's one of the reasons I like to help people learn how to write. Because I don't want them to write like me. I want them to find their voice. Right? Okay. So there was a really interesting article written by Lowe and Archibald that was published, I think, in 2009. And I haven't had the honor of meeting Dr. Lowe. We served on studies section together at NIH, and he's Native American. And he's a phenomenal individual. He's just so down to earth. But he wrote in this article, and that's where the title for this presentation came from, this whole notion of intention. He says that we made a commitment a long time ago to be diverse. And what I've observed in my 26 years as a teacher and my 35 years as a nurse is a willingness an openness to always inviting people to the table. But sometimes when we invite them to the table, we don't listen to their voice. And what happens with that is this is what I mean is diverse people sometimes bring uncomfortable topics to the table, and none of us are ready to talk about them. So it's the elephant in the room, and rather than to deal with it, we brush it aside. I can tell you, I live in Memphis, Tennessee, one of the most phenomenal cities in America. But I lament often, and I said this to my friends and colleagues, that Memphis is not like Atlanta, a great city, because Martin King died in Memphis, Tennessee, and we have never had a frank conversation about it. And everything in Memphis, Tennessee is divided by race. Black and white, not Latino, Asian, even though those populations are growing, black and white is what divides Memphis, Tennessee. And when you don't have those crucial conversations, have you ever heard of that book, Crucial Conversations? It is a must read. It is a must read. Because one of the things that came out when I was listening to you all talk was that oftentimes we don't know how to have those conversations. And this is a book that talks to you about having those difficult conversations. You know, we do everything else to develop our clinical skills, but the one skill I think sometimes we fail to pay as much attention to is our communication skills, our listening skills, our problem-solving skills. You know, and hopefully nurse practitioners are better than ICU nurses. I'm an ICU nurse by background, and hopefully nurses midwives are better. But my hunch is we can always work on those things. And then, so the question becomes, well, we don't get CEUs for that, and it doesn't happen for us practice. Then that's a problem with our profession, isn't it? Because these are skills that are critical to taking care of these patients. And if you don't get credit for it, then what do? You become a leader and you push a professional organization. You say, I want credit for this because this is important because of X, Y, and Z. You make it become important to your professional organization. We can't function without it. And our patients can't survive without it. We need this kind of leadership. Okay? All right. Oh, I'm getting wound up. I feel so strongly about these things. I just feel so strongly. Because I've witnessed so much. I've stood back and been quiet and listened and reflected. And then I decided that shy or not, someone has to do. And it may be a lone voice in the wilderness. But I think I'm pretty brave. And I'm willing to step out there and take a risk. And the reason I'm willing to step out there and take a risk is this. I care so much about this profession that we have. Because I think there's nothing better, no career better, nowhere. Sorry, guys. And nursing. Okay? You hear me? All right. I need to stop walking.
No, we like you to watch.
Okay, well, I'm walking. Okay.
Then we have to move to watching.
Yes, yes, it keeps your weight, doesn't it? Okay. Where was I? So, when we ask people to come to the table, I'm going to ask you a question. Do we ask people to come to the table so that they can conform to how we think, act, and are? Do we want them to conform and be like us? Can diverse individuals be themselves in the workplace? Can you show who your authentic self is? Can you show everything there is to know about you? Oftentimes you feel like you can't, don't you? Because you're afraid you'll be ostracized or judged or misperceived. Have you ever been the only woman in the room again, and you wanted to say something in the group that was a passionate discussion going on, but you knew that if you said something, all eyes would turn to you, and you weren't quite ready to deal with whatever it was that you had to deal with? Have you ever felt like that before? You've seen some injustice being done to a coworker, a patient, some inappropriate comment being made by someone. You wanted to step forward and you wanted to act, but you remained silent. And is our silence acceptance? Is our silence complacency? What is it? And in the poem that I read to you when I finish here, I want to challenge you. Because I know you have it within you. You would not be sitting here at Frontier Nursing if you didn't have the seeds within you to take on this challenge. So for several years when I met Dr. Stone, I was teaching a diversity class. And what we expected that students would do, and this was a required class, it wasn't an elective, it was a required course. And what we expected students to do in this class was to read, but also to experience. And you had to go someplace and be in a context that made you very uncomfortable. You know, some of my really devout Christian students went to a Buddhist temple. Some people went to grocery stores where there was nothing in English. And what does that do for you when you immerse yourself in that situation? It makes you feel like the different other. How patients feel when they come to our hospitals and they don't understand our jargon. They may speak English, but the language that we speak in healthcare is not English. It's healthcare language, right? It's nursing and medicine and occupational therapy. And so then we expected the students to take that experience and to incorporate it into everything they did after they left that course. In my mind, every nursing student, every physician student, every occupational student ought to have that kind of educational experience. And then they need to be in classes with one another so that they learn to talk in classes together. So when they go into the world to practice, they're practicing together. Am I living in la la land? Of course I am. But I'm one of those people who sees the glass half full. And if you can't dream it, it won't happen. If you can't dream it and take risks, it's never going to happen. Somebody's got to start. And I'm telling you, there's some seeds in this room, some people in this room who are going to shake us up. And every once in a while, we all need a little shake up, don't we? Okay. So, did you know that the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, you know this, they support that we need to prepare nurses who view eliminating health disparities, practicing in culturally competent ways, and promoting diversity as within their leadership scope. Did you know that? And did you know that in 2009, AACN released a white paper in collaboration with the California Endowment titled Establishing a Culturally Competent Master's and Doctorally Prepared Nursing Workforce? And did you know that this paper outlines in detail core graduate cultural competency skills that every advanced practice nurse ought to have? And did you know that one of the core cultural competencies in this paper is the expectation that graduates transform the healthcare system to address social justice, Tori, and health disparities? So, I'm not making this up. Dr. Stone's not making this up. We need to be doing this. It's part of who we are, right? Okay. So, as today as I stand here and we talk about these issues, I'm asking you, are you prepared to accept the charge? And this paper was not just an AACN paper. Almost every professional organization, nursing organization known to man, supported the paper. Good intentions, but have we moved it to reality? That's the question. And who's gonna move the cheese, so to speak? Who's gonna do it? It's got to be me and you. We can't wait for somebody else to do it, because if we wait for somebody else to do it, what's gonna happen? It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Okay? So somebody said we stand on the cusp of a new tomorrow. I agree with you that we stand on the cusp of a new tomorrow. Whether you support it or not, the Affordable Care Act is here, and it's opened a lot of doors of opportunity. The nursing profession is 3 million strong, and we practice everywhere, and we practice with everybody, don't we? We take care of everybody. So, we've been charged by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Institute of Medicine. You all know about that report, The Future of Nursing and Healthcare. We've been charged to advance health and to lead this transformation. So it's not mono. It's not incorrect. We know that in order to get us where we need to be, we are one of the most powerful nations in the world. Yet our people, our populations, collectively, have some of the worst outcomes compared to the other industrialized nations. And why is that? When we spend more on health care, acute care, hospitalization care, and not enough on primary care than any other nation. What is that telling us? Are we doing what we need to do? So we've got to learn to work with our colleagues in different professions. We've got to learn to work with for populations who are different from us. But we have to do it individually, each one of you, and we have to do it as a collective. So, educational transformations yield increased leadership capacity. I'm going to tell you a little bit about strategies you can use on a budget. Because we all have budgets, don't we? About how you can improve your leadership skills. And maybe you think you know all you should know to be an effective leader, and, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. But I would argue that educational transformations, we really have to be very careful and strategic, and we really have to plan to get ourselves ready for this agenda. We need to see what our strengths are. We know what our strengths are. We need to know what our limitations are personally, and then we need to create a plan, because just thinking about it, it's not going to happen. It requires that you take strategic risk and put yourself out there sometimes when you're very uncomfortable, but you can do it. It requires that you be emotionally intelligent. You know that terminology, emotional intelligence. Okay? And it requires professional courage, which is a hard thing to do, because sometimes you're standing in the wilderness by yourself. But you're telling me in this session that you believe in this agenda. Aren't you telling me that? You're telling me you believe. And if you believe, you can do it. But you must prepare. It's hard work. It'll be uncomfortable sometimes. You'll ask yourself why you're doing this. But I'm telling you, if you do it, it will change who you are. It will change who you are. So when I mentioned those things that the ACN paper had in it relative to eliminating health disparities, these are the things that it had in it. It said that we need to help people with their leadership role in this area of eliminating health disparities by socially and empirically deriving and understanding. We need to understand the complex causes of diversity or health disparities, and that's one of the things that we learned in Unnatural Causes, is that people can have the same access to health care. They can have the same resources, but perhaps be an ethnic minority, and they have these bad infant mortality outcomes. You know, there have been some studies that have been done with the VA system where everybody gets the same health care, but then, no, it doesn't. There's health disparities even within the VA population. So something's not right here. We need to be able to address it as a nursing profession. We need to deliver culturally competent care. We know that. We all buy into that. We need to directly tackle social injustice, which means you cannot be silent when you hear injustices. We need to advocate for policies, because things sometimes have to start with policies to make changes rain down. So we have to have a groundswell from the bottom and changes from the top, and maybe the two will meet. And maybe with those kinds of actions, we'll see change. Okay? We need to learn the skills to collaborate, and we need to use these skills effectively with our patients, their families, our team members, outside agencies, like home health agencies, and other important stakeholders. We are a team, and sometimes we need to lead the team. You know, I told somebody at lunch that one of our representatives, I just wanted to shoot him. Oop, I'm on TV. Okay, well, I said. But let me tell you what he did. He wrote this terrible, powerful op-ed that said that physicians must always be the leaders of the team. It discounted the work of any other profession. And what we say is this: if the person who needs to lead the team is a person who has skill in that context, right? Isn't that the way it should be? And so you see all these things happening across the nation, these kinds of things going on. And we need to be careful not to be silent, because who is the most trusted healthcare profession? nursing. And if nursing, and the only time in the recent past that we weren't was when after 9/11, and it finally became the most trusted profession. But soon afterwards, we came back to the top. And so we have the nation's trust. Why are we afraid for a groundswell to come up and to insist on the elimination of health disparities and equity for all? Why are we afraid? We have the nation behind us. You're really not alone, although sometimes you're still alone. We got the nation behind us. And what else? We need to have changing of our attitudes and transform who we are so that we become better providers, better collaborators, and better advocates. And advocates are leaders. And we need to conduct and participate in culturally competent scholarship. Write papers that talk about the challenges of working with different populations and the strategies that you've used that have been effective. Those kinds of things are important. Do presentations at your professional organization and share those experiences with one another. Because everybody's asking the question, what can I do to be more effective in these populations? And do not, above all things, take a cultural competence course and think you know everything there is to know about Latinos, African Americans, et cetera, because the challenge is there is more diversity within these groups than there is across these groups. Don't make that mistake. Don't think that all African Americans are in church. We're not. Okay? I didn't go to church regularly until I was 12 years old, although both my parents were brought up in church. So when I told my sister-in-law that I didn't grow up in the church, she said, "Are you black?" I said, "Last time I looked, I was." So you see what my feeling is, what my point is? Don't rely on stereotypes. It's easy, it makes our work easy, doesn't it? We think we know everyone. Don't rely on stereotypes. Because it'll do what? Get you in trouble. Okay. You can help me with my time, Kim, because I'm one of those people that keeps talking, and I'm going to stop and respect their time. There was a wonderful article that I read. I'm always reading. That's typical, and I don't have enough excitement in my life that I have to read all the time. I like knowledge. I'm a sponge, and I love knowledge. And so Cohen and his colleagues wrote this really incredible paper that was published, I think it was in Health Affairs, not a nursing journal. I have to read outside our profession sometimes to know what's going on that's relevant to us. Now, I read the Harvard Business Review. Why do you read the Harvard Business Review? Because there's these leadership principles that are phenomenal in the Harvard Business Review. And we have a limited amount of money that we can spend on all these kinds of things. Again, I'm going to give you a plan on a budget. Okay. And so what they found in their particular article was that there is they looked at what they call the business case for diversity. And so what they said was that they believe that the most compelling reason to foster workforce diversity is to foster cultural competence. Okay? Nothing shocking. The real differences that exist within diverse populations influence the healthcare decisions that people make. What people believe influences the decisions they make. You'll learn that in Anthropology 101, okay? Medical anthropology. Becoming culturally competent is a process, and it requires more than classroom discussions. I think somebody mentioned that, and more than textbooks. But if we educate our students in environments with diverse other students, as we're doing here at Frontier Nursing, then they gain practice. You gain practical experience learning to work with different people, right? And these experiences allow you to transcend your own perspectives and to learn about and try to understand and to value the perspectives of others. Okay. The second reason they said that we need to do this is because data shows, particularly among medical trainees, I think I mentioned this earlier, that students of color tend to take care of populations of color. Okay. The third reason that they said was it will help to strengthen our research agenda. And it's the same thing that holds. Typically, people of color do research about people of color. Not always, because I've done research about all kinds of people. But in the end, as I'm journeying out the door from my research career, my nursing academic career, much of my time has been focused on health disparities because no one's doing enough work. We don't have enough scientists doing that work. So that's another reason for doing it. And then the fourth reason is that we need to train a pool of healthcare executives and policymakers who are ethnically diverse or diverse in other ways. Because if they're prepared, then they'll come to the table and be able to speak about the issues that cross every spectrum of difference. We need those things. Those are the rationales for this approach. So before we move forward a little bit, and I think I've gotten behind, so let me catch up. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I got my slides in a different order. Nope, that's it. Okay, this is it. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is something about another fascinating article. But it's relevant to you, and I want you to see yourself in it. And I want you to ask yourself questions as I tell you about this article. And it was written in 1996, and you think, why is she telling us about this 1996 article? That's antiquated information. Well, what I would say to you is this. This is what I call a seminal article, meaning it's one of those important articles. But they said something. They did a study in 1996, these authors did. And they learned some important things that they shared with the world. But we're still in the same place. If you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same results. So what I'm saying to you is I'm going to share this study with you because you don't know about it. And what it talks about is how you view diversity. Because how you view diversity determines what you'll do about it and how you do what you do about it and what kinds of outcomes you have. So I want you to think about these paradigms of diversity that I'm going to tell you about. And think about the organizations where you work and think, is this a paradigm where I work? Is this a worldview? Is this how people think where I work? Is this how my family thinks about diversity? My family of origin? Is this how my professional organization thinks about diversity? Because I think some of these same thinking approaches are still there. So, I've done that. So this slide provides an important assumption that informed the work of Thomas and Eli. And what they did was they conducted a 6-year study, and it was with 2 financial firms, 3 Fortune 500 companies, 2 mid-sized manufacturing companies, a private foundation, and a university medical center. And they did interviews and surveys, and they did archival data, and then they stood around and kind of watched people interact, observational data. And what they discovered when they looked at all of these data was that there's 2 primary paradigms that people, or worldviews that people have about diversity. See where you fit. But they say neither approach is effective. Okay? And they propose a third one. So the first one is either you, so the 2 paradigms fall within these 2 ranges, exclusion versus inclusion, in terms of how you understand diversity. Some leaders and organizations value diversity because they view exclusion as illegal and morally wrong. Okay? Other leaders value diversity because they believe inclusion increases organizational effectiveness, raises employee morale, provides new opportunities to expand to new markets, new students, enhances employee productivity, and is just good for business. That has relevance for healthcare. It has relevance for nursing. And they say that there are benefits to diversity, and that's why they pursued doing the 6-year study. They say that a person who works in an organization that really values and accepts and respects diversity will have a workforce that is fully engaged in the work culture, that they will better identify the work that they do, and they will be more satisfied employees. Now, wouldn't you want to work in a place where you felt like you had a voice and what you said mattered, even if it was different from what somebody else said? Don't you want that in your organization where you work? So they came up with these 2 paradigms. But They also contend that diversity is beneficial to organizations beyond increased profitability. They argue that learning, creativity, flexibility, and organizational and individual growth are fostered by a diverse workforce. Think about the teams that you work on, your classmates, and whether this is true of you or not. They also believe that members of a diverse group are more than the unique information that they bring to the team about their own people. What happens to a lot of people is this in organizations. You're African American, so therefore you're going to be the African American recruiter. And that's not a bad thing, unless you see that person has no other talent than being the African American recruiter, or the female recruiter, or the lesbian gay recruiter, or whatever the case might be. So you put the person in a little box, and you forget to look at the rest of who they are, and then you don't feel important. And you think your skills are being exploited because they don't see the whole of who you are. So then when a promotion opportunity becomes available, well, no, you're the ethnic minority recruiter. You can't be the associate dean for research. You can't be the dean. You can't be the director. You see where I'm going with that? How sometimes we put people in pigeonholes. This is all very uncomfortable, isn't it? Isn't it? Part of what we learned in the diversity class was we have to look at who we are and what we believe and where it came from. And it requires that we acknowledge that some of what we were taught by the people we love and respect was not the truth. That's very uncomfortable, isn't it? But you know what? It's time to get uncomfortable. Because you can't do anything about it unless we acknowledge it. Right? We have to. Okay. I'm just really wondering what's going on inside of people's heads. Because I can't see without my glasses. Okay? I can just see little blurry faces smiling, or glaze over looks like, oh, she'd shut up, or, whatever. But I feel something in this room. I feel something in this room. Okay? Okay, so let me move quickly because we're running out of time. Let me do that. Okay, slide. I need to move quickly because I want to get to some things. So this is the first paradigm. This is called the Assimilation Paradigm, and also referred to as Discrimination and Fairness Paradigm. And so if you have a leader that functions like this, they focus on equal opportunity for everyone. They focus on fair treatment. They try to recruit as many diverse minorities as they can. They try to comply with the equal opportunity mandates. And they see diversity as important. And the target numbers are not just the important thing, but that's how they measure the outcome. And that's what most of us do. These organizations provide mentoring for women and minorities, and they train their employees to respect differences. This is very uncomfortable. Think about this. Organizations that embrace this paradigm are usually bureaucratic. The leaders value due process and equal treatment of our employees. There are processes in place to monitor, measure, and reward individual performance. The team is diversified, the work is not. Okay? And the underlying premise is we are all the same. Or we all aspire to be the same. Okay? So, what I'm saying about this kind of organizational perspective is that diversity is seen as valuable in and of itself, but how it might inform and improve and help make the organization better is not addressed. So everything about diversity, all the benefits of diversity are not captured by this perspective. So it's got benefits, but it's got drawbacks, like anything else in life. So this is what the leaders in that organization look like, and they say the U.S. Army is a perfect example. You decide. Okay? Military in general, they would say, fits this model. Okay? All right. Now, the next paradigm is the differentiation paradigm. And it came out of their research. This is not things they made up. They observed it when they watched these organizations function on a daily basis. And it's referred to as the access and legitimacy paradigm because it's predicated on the assumption of acceptance and celebration of differences. Sounds good, doesn't it? And that organizations use this diversity strategy to push for access to new markets, to seek legitimacy within these markets, and then they have an organization that really becomes very diverse. But according to Thomas and Eli, this is a superficial acceptance because, remember why I mentioned that people get pigeonholed? What happens is they just see that person for the value of what they bring in terms of knowledge about the group that they came from. And that misses out on the other talents and skills that that person might bring to the table. Okay? And so the leader who has these characteristics really focuses on fairness and organizational benefits, outcomes, but the employees sometimes feel exploited and expendable, and they don't peel away the layers of the onion to understand why it's working. Okay? Why is this working in our market? And how can we use why it's working in our market, the rationale for the success, to improve the entire organization? Okay? So you have these pockets of, say for example, you have this Native American satellite that has all Native American people, and it's doing really well. But what happens if the money runs out? Do the employees worry about the jobs going away? For example, say the enrollment of Native American students was dropped dramatically for 2 or 3 years, and then you couldn't justify to your board having the satellite anymore. And so you lose all these great people that you've nurtured and brought along to the team, right? Rather than taking these great people and integrating them within your entire system. Okay? Is everybody with me? Some of you wish to ever go away. Okay, then this shows the two paradigms side by side. And the examples that I have here are nursing examples at the very bottom. And think about this, the School of Nursing that discourages the students and faculty from forming a Black Student Association chapter because in our college, we believe that everybody's the same. And they don't think about what there might be some benefits of having that Black student organization for that particular group of students, right? Okay. And then on the other side of the coin is you're the sole minority tenure faculty member, and you're assigned to go work with a historically Black college or university. Well, that's a natural choice. I'm not putting that down. But that person has other skills. And so what does that bring? What does that make that person feel and think? Okay. Good intentions, great intentions, but I have to understand what the potential consequences might be. Okay, how much time do I have?
30 minutes.
30. Huh?
30 minutes.
Oh, doing good. All right.
That's type of questions I'll do.
Okay, so I have about 15 minutes. So I need to move real quickly then. Let me move real quickly. I really want the questions to come, and I'm going to flip through some of these slides really quickly. But what they talk about is something called the integration paradigm. And what the integration paradigm is simply this. And I know people cringe when they hear the word integration. But what it is it says we're different. We are a team with our differences, not despite our differences. So these are organizations that really, truly honor and respect the diversity of the various members on the team. And they talk about some preconditions to that paradigm shift occurring. And I'm not going to go through this because what I'm going to do is you'll have access to these slides at a later date. And there's a reference list at the back of the slide. What I want to do, though, is move to, because I talked about giving you some leadership skills on a budget. I want to give you some leadership resources to build your skills on a budget. Okay, let me do that real quickly. So I have to flip through these really quickly. I'm sorry to the people who are streaming in because this is going to look bizarre, and I hope it doesn't stimulate anybody to have a seizure. That's what we were talking about when we were having our pictures made. We were flashing. I'm one of those people who always blinks when I get a picture made. So here we are here. So, mentoring is what Maria talked about this morning. I was really excited because I can move through this quickly. But your mentor doesn't have to look like you, and you don't need one mentor. Because every person doesn't have all the skills that you need to be effective. So I've got Black women who are my mentors. I've got Black men who are my mentors. And when I was in the Robert Wood Johnson program, the most interesting thing happened to me. One of the best mentors I had was some of someone who was a conservative Republican. And I'm a liberal Democrat. And I love this man. And he taught me a lot. So if you're not open, you miss that opportunity. You have to be open to what people can give you. One of the things you may have noticed about me is I was sitting here crying listening to the story. I don't care who sees me cry. That's the authentic moment. And so when someone tells me a story that moves me, I cry. And he said to me, I said, people see that as a sign of weakness. He said, but I see it as a sign of strength. Because you're so comfortable with who you are, you don't care what anybody thinks. You do what you have to do to be the authentic moment. So I would not have had that experience if I was always looking for a black female to mentor me. Okay? And the other thing that the Robert Wood Johnson program gave me was a coach, an executive coach. And I'm thinking some of you all need to be in this Robert Wood Johnson program at some point in your career because this executive coach helped me with my leadership presence. to feel more comfortable. Yeah. Right? Right? And so that was a wonderful experience as well. So you need to identify mentors and you need to stay away from toxic people. If somebody's giving you negative messages, that is not your mentor. Do you hear me? They may tell you they're your mentor. That is not your mentor. That is not. Look at these programs. There's lots of leadership programs out there. Explore them when you get done with school. And if you want to talk to me and email me and talk about these programs, I'll tell everybody about the Robert Wood Johnson program. And I've written so many letters of recommendations for people, and I will write letters for you. People don't ask for help. The worst thing that somebody can tell you is what? No. And since you're expecting them to say no anyway, do it anyway, right? So what do you have to do? You're already expecting them to say no, right? Ask for help. Okay. Quickly. There's a great book that's been published by Grossman on mentoring in nursing. Get it, read it. It's a great book. You mentor others, you get mentors, and your mentees don't have to look like you. You can mentor somebody if you're Caucasian who's African American. I do it. My dissertation students are not all African American. And you know what? When they leave, I hear from them. Because I care about them and I respect them, and they know it. Now, most of my students are students of color because students of color tend to gravitate towards me. But I'm going to tell you something. If you want to achieve, because I came up being very poor, I remember I liked being turned off sometimes. Somebody helps me. If you ask me for help, I'm going to help you. And if I'm too tired of them, I'm going to say, this is what I can do for you. Let me tell you how to get this done. Okay? And you can do that. Take a risk. You see somebody who's promising, who you think is great, who has a great career in front of them, that you want to help nurture, do it. You're not going to get it all right all the time. That's life. Do it. Okay? So read that book. That's an assignment. I don't work here, right? Okay, and then sponsorship. Have you ever heard the term sponsorship? Mentoring and sponsorship are not the same. Sponsorship is something you see in the business sector. We should do it more in nursing, and I actually do it. If I'm working with a colleague and I think that they could be the chair of a committee, I go to the meetings. When I was there first again, I go to the meetings and say, so-and-so could do this. A sponsor puts your agenda forward because they see promise in you. A mentor gives you support and guidance and information. A sponsor acts to move you forward. And some of you have been sponsoring people, and I called it that, you call it mentoring, but that's sponsorship. Sponsor people and get yourself a sponsor, okay? They don't cost anything. Free. And people say nothing in life is free, then you give something back to them. And the very fact that you have a relationship is giving something back to them. Okay. So at this point, because we are running out of time, I want to talk through some slides, but if you want to ask questions, do it. Let me show you this thing. Leadership blogs. There are some phenomenal leadership blogs free out there. I read the Harvard Business Review blog every day. I skim it every day. If I'm too busy grading papers, it's on my plate for Friday evening. I've learned some phenomenal things from reading free blogs, leadership blogs. And this is a link to the top 10 leadership blogs in the nation. Find one, see if you like it, take advantage of it. Okay? TED Talks. Do people know about TED Talks? There are some phenomenal leadership talks on TED Talks. It's a nonprofit organization. They have, this woman talks about Black women in leadership. This woman is the woman who wrote Leaning In. Have you heard that? Lean In, Lean In. Yeah, this is her. So she's got to talk about leadership on there. Free, 30-minute talks, not a long time. Everybody's got 30 minutes if you want to develop as a leader. You don't have to do a lot every week, a little bit every week, a little bit every week. A concerted strategic plan, a goal, and work on it. And if you can only give it 10 minutes this week, 10 minutes is better than no minutes. Okay?
Kitty listens to all the TED Talks.
They're phenomenal.
And then she sends them out as we're supposed to listen to.
They're phenomenal. They are phenomenal. You all know who Malcolm Gladwell is, who wrote the book Blink and some other books? He talks about us squandering our resources. Squandering our resources because we're not taking advantage of all the diverse people in the world and the skills and talents that they bring. These are the kinds of things that you can do to develop your leadership skills. And then this guy has a really great book that talks about leadership, the 3 levels of leadership, but he's got a series of videotaped workshops that he did in England that talks about leadership presence. And they are great. And if you had to go out and pay for it, it probably would cost you about $2,000. They are great. Great. Free. Knowledge is power. Start those groups where you read a book together on your unit, on your team, because you're interested in diversity, you're interested in leadership. Read and talk about things together. Write a leadership article. Submit a presentation. I mentioned all that. And look for leadership positions. Yeah, the staff is great. I became the chaplain of our National Honor Society. I was so quiet. They called me Mouse. But you know what? That first step out there, I loved it. It was fun. I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. And I would never have done it if somebody hadn't pushed me. Okay? Try it. I'm pushing you. I'm your push. Okay? And then we need to tell our national organizations that not only do we need to build our leadership, our clinical skills, we need to build our leadership skills. Get CEUs for that. We mentioned that. And the unintended consequences of doing these things for yourself is you improve your leadership in nursing and for the nation. Your nursing programs get stronger. We're ready to sit at the table with other people who are making decisions. And we're ready to sit on boards. Okay? At this point, I'm going to stop, because the rest of the things I have on here, I'll tell you what I have on here. I've got all of these leadership programs that you can do as minorities and leadership programs that you do that you're not a minority. I've got all these resources on the web for cultural diversity. You can look at all those things yourself. Let's have a conversation. Can we talk now? Let's have a conversation.
Can we have a PowerPoint?
Huh?
Can we have a PowerPoint?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Without question, you can have my PowerPoint. You can have anything I have. Including my, no, I'm serious. I'm not playing, you guys. Somebody helped me, Maria. And my payback to that person and those persons who helped me was to remember to help somebody else. I'm serious. I'm not playing. People, I get stuff from people all over the world. I don't even know who they are. And what do you need? And I hook people up with, I don't have the skill. I'll tell you, I know this person. And I'll write them for you and say, I'm introducing you to. I do that. Because sometimes it's just a matter of making the right connection. Right. Okay? That's what I do. I call myself a broker of people. Okay? Questions, comments?
I do the same thing on Facebook. If somebody says, oh, I need this, I just throw it out there. I don't know if anybody's going to answer or not, but I throw it out there. Like, you never know who you're going to actually, connect with.
And you don't know if you don't do it. You don't know. You don't have anything on it, Alex.
This is it, yeah. People don't get 15 minutes of motive. All the time.
I'm going to get more of the time.
or
I know.
website?
Maybe we can make this into a YouTube video.
That's, I'd do it if I gave me the opportunity. Don't think I wouldn't try it. Crazy to do it.
We need to sponsor you. There's a question over here.
Yes.
All right, you're in a position where you have brought us a lot of information on leadership. What have you learned from this experience that you're going to take back?
Here. That's a good question. Thank you for that. Very good question. What have I learned, my experience here that I can take back with me? What I've learned is this, is that there are lots of wonderful students in the world who have great possibilities, who just need mentors. And I'll mentor you. I'll mentor you. I'm serious. I will.
So you teach in a PhD program?
I teach in the DMP program and the PhD program. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm an old critical care nurse. I love health disparities. I love writing. I have a class that teaches you to write for publications. I give people coaching on writing. I said when I get ready to retire, that's I'm going to start my own business and critique people's work for them so they'll get better. And in a gentle way. Because I can tell you the first thing I published or tried to publish, my goodness, oh my goodness, it's such a terror. I can tell you, I write really well. I mean, I know that that's one of my strengths. But I sent this paper off, and basically the reviewers told me, it was one really, it wasn't reviewers, it was one, but you know, you always pay attention to the negative, and told me, you cannot write. I thought, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. I took that paper and I put it in a drawer and it stayed there for a whole year. And I know how devastating it can be for someone to give you negative messages and make you not believe in who you are. And then I opened that drawer one day and I said, oh, no. I can write, so let me look at this stuff and put on my thick skin and see what's in here I can do something with. And the rest of it goes in file 13. So I looked at it, I massaged my manuscript, and I sent it to a new nursing journal called the Journal of Family Nursing. The editorial assistant sent it back to me and said, this is one of the best first submissions we've ever done. Because they had gotten some, they had several months of publication, but they said this is one of the best ones. And if I had listened to that reviewer, I would never have written another word. And so when I read the paper, they'll tell you I write all over it. But I say things that have been thought about steps. And you know, when you say this is what I'm thinking, is this what your intended message was? And they say, oh no, that's not what I meant. So it's asking questions to help people learn. Yeah.
Do you look at people's CVs?
So yes, I look at people's CVs. I do. It makes suggestions. But what I found for nurses, this is very true of women in general, I think, but especially for nurses, is we always undercut ourselves and minimize the work that we do. And I have to tell you, you have to speak for yourself because no one else will. You have to speak for yourself. It's not arrogant to do that. Just say what your gifts are, and you know your limitations. Be humble with it, but know what your strengths are. There's nothing sinful about that. Nothing. Nothing wrong. Nothing arrogant. And you have to lead yourself before you can lead anybody else. Right? You have to lead yourself. Believe in yourself and lead yourself. Set a plan, have a dream, make the steps, and do it. You know how to say, Mikey, just do it?
I want to go back to, you were talking about the underswell of, you know, having people that support nurses and nurse practitioners and not understanding why there wasn't the groundswell. Just in quick thinking about it, I think there's a fear because across the nation it's not level, it's not even with how advanced practice nurses are viewed. And we all have a living to make,
Yes,
and we have that passion, and we're afraid
yes,
at some point to rock the boat, because doctors have a lot more money than we do
They
just to
do.
lobby, and it's a lot of politics involved in it. And I think that's why we haven't had the huge groundswell. That's just my opinion.
and there's probably a whole lot of truth to that, but let me tell you one thing that I've learned. When I step out there, I make people angry sometimes, but I never lost a job. Never. I've made some people angry. We've had to have some hard discussions, but I never lost a job. Because I do it respectfully. Sometimes it gets heated, but I do it with respect. Yes.
I want to go back to your comment where you said about your reputation, you said that about the doctors. Because I come from Alabama, and our governor has said that.
Yeah.
He would support the doctors no matter what against the nurses.
Right.
But we have terrible health disparities
Right.
and terrible infant mortality. So, and what I have found in the course of being in the school and trying to get involved is that the nurses just are backbiting each other and everything. So what is the thing that you find as a leader works most effectively to bring everybody together under one umbrella to help nurses to make that difference, to improve the health disparities because it's so bad?
Yeah. So I think you have to have those crucial conversations. I think you have to get small pockets of people together and have discussions. And then what you do is you come up with a plan that everybody can agree to, and that everybody doesn't have to do all of the work, that you break the work up into pieces, because all of us have another life. We've got families, we've got whatever. And so if you do bits and pieces together, oftentimes, that's what community work is all about. It's creating these collaboratives of people who work together in disadvantaged communities, having conversations, listening to suggestions, coming up with a strategy, and then somebody going out and helping that strategy become a reality. Does it always work? No. But it's not going to get any better if you don't try. And so you learn, and so you try to do it as strategically, as thoughtfully as you can so that you don't anger people. And you start to think about what are the potential responses to what we're doing. So if you anticipate the responses, then you have something ready for those responses. And sometimes when you anticipate the responses, it means you have to change your strategy just a little bit. And what you do is you talk to those powerful people in policy and say, because I'm not afraid to walk up to anybody and say, I don't know you, but you're a great policy person, and can you help me brainstorm about how we can get this done? So you pull in people with different skill sets, legislators, whoever, and you have conversations. You have conversations, create a plan, and try to act it out. For example, in my mind, if nurses really believe in eliminating health disparities, then that governor would be on his way out the door. I mean, you have to let your beliefs influence your actions. And if your beliefs are not that, they're not going to influence those actions. He may have a lot of other great things about him, but I'm going to tell you something about the economic engine in all of these different states. Is healthcare is eating it up. And if we don't fix it, we all are going to suffer. We all are going to suffer. We're going to suffer. I mean, that's my idea of the thing to do, is to work with the community, to work among nurses, to bring in other allies, business people. That's one of the things that the Robert Wood Johnson report did beautifully. It brought in business when business had never been involved in the discussion about what nurses' role is in transforming healthcare. Now, those people took a lot of heat. And after that happened, there was this discussion of nurses and doctors that came together that were working on the strategy. Somebody leaked the strategy to the press, leaked it to the AMA, and everything stopped. But I can find that report and I will share that with you all. But what happened was, each group learned something important, and they know that when they go back to the table, they're going to try some different strategies. Because they should have anticipated that someone was going to leak the report. Because that's oftentimes what happens before something is final.
Yeah, I read that report not too long ago.
I
The
did.
outcome was, we really didn't get anywhere.
Nothing happened.
It was like a $30,000 grant for them to
Yeah.
come together and have all these discussions, and they walked away with no agreement.
No agreement. But they haven't learned some important lessons. And sometimes you have to learn the lessons and try again. They're not ready to try again yet, but they're confident they'll try again.
So why no agreement?
Because it's the eye to eye?
Well, because the
Or they
physicians who were
didn't finish
involved,
the job?
they didn't finish the job because the physicians who were involved were concerned about their stance with their professional organization, their position. And in my mind, and it's easy for me to say this because I was not in it or there, but because they were not courageous enough to do it. They were not willing to be the lone voice in the wilderness. They were not willing to do it because they knew that there were economic consequences, which are very real consequences.
As you're saying that, it just, I think about the fact that, anytime there's true change and growth and et cetera, there has to be sacrifice.
Yes.
And, it's very easy to say what you believe, but if you really want to know what you believe, then you look at your pocketbook,
Right.
your checkbook, your time, and your energy.
That's right.
Where you spend those things, that's what you really believe.
That's right.
And until we, and I say, and I'm including myself, until we are willing to sacrifice time, energy, money, then we cannot really expect change to
That's
happen.
exactly right. I believe that that's the truth.
Which is why we, as a profession, can't just say, I just want to take care of my patients. I don't want to get involved in all that stuff. So let somebody else do that. That won't work. That hasn't worked. It's,
Before we end, can I have 2 minutes to read this poem that I wrote it for you? I'm a jack-legged poet. I'm really feeling good. Do you all know the word jack-leg? Okay, so let me help you. So the word jack-leg is like, I'm a poet, but I really don't have any. Try it. I'm just kind of doing it because I think I can. Yeah, you think you can do something, you do it. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Kind of like being a car repair, a shade tree mechanic, that kind of thing. Well, so I'm a shade tree poet, okay? All right. But I do this when I have a very powerful feeling about something. And so I'm going to share this with you. And then when I leave, I'll send an electronic copy back for you to have. And you can put it wherever you want to. File 13 on your wall, wherever you want to put it. And so the name of the poem is What Holds Us Back? And it's one nurse's dream or her lifelong profession. Okay, you ready? Okay. We espouse a commitment to diversity, cultural competence, and inclusion. Is our belief in social justice a mockery or a quietly recurring delusion? We advocate on behalf of patients because we honor and respect humankind. Yet, why are we so reluctant to act? And why are we resigned to witnessing untold injustices unfold before our eyes? At what point do we move against and question misconceptions and horrid lies? When will we act boldly? When will we step forward and speak? Is our stillness and our silence agreement? We advocate with others whose voices are neither heard nor believed. Is an advocating with and for others central to nursing's professional creed? What stops us from moving forward? Why can't we intercede? Why don't our convictions empower us with a boldness to take some reins and plead? Then something amazing happens, and the tide suddenly turns. A passion rises within us, a passion that quietly and steadily burns. We chastise ourselves, we examine our values, and we question our beliefs. We arm ourselves with knowledge and skill. We arm ourselves with grief. We prepare and we debate. We strategically plan and think. Before we know what's happened, we find our voices and speak. How could we have known? How could we have ever guessed that advocating for cultural competence, inclusion, and diversity is a moral test? Perhaps we simply forgot that these values are moral barometers covered by partisan dust. I think we suddenly recalled that we have the nation's respect, support, and trust. Leadership began with you and me. Leadership is us. Thank you for having me. Aye, aye.